I'm pretty bad at these intros. Lucky this man doesn't need much of an introduction. He Triple Crown, Australian road champion. He is probably podcasting's town bike. Everyone gets a go. So I'm getting a go today. He's joined us on Train Like a Monk. Luke Plappy, welcome.
Thanks, Si. Good to join, mate. Been listening for the best part of 12 months now, so it's nice to be a part of it, and I like what you're doing.
Beautiful. Where you set the scene for us? Where are you at the moment?
I've just gone down to Bright. The Wi-Fi isn't too good down at my block, so I've made the trip into the Big Smoke. It's about 35 degrees here, pretty hot. And yeah, 1 week left. I fly out in a couple of days to Perth before we get over to Nationals.
What's the flight look like? Have you got the private jet from the airstrip at Mount Beauty there?
I wish. No. What is it? 8 p.m. flight from Melbourne to Bright. So I'll wake up early and do some hours here in Bright, jump in the sauna, and then make the trek down the Hume Highway to Melbourne Airport. Actually going to park in long-term parking and pick the car up a week later and drive straight back up here and get a few days back in Bright before TDU starts.
Geez, that's keen. So yeah, I was actually thinking most of the Aussies would just get stuck on the road for the next month now, basically, or pretty much anyone that's racing this next stretch of races. But you get a bit of home time in between all of those.
Yeah. Look, the whole team's going straight to Adelaide, but for me, I just like coming back here and switching off for a few days. I mean, I'll be able to get a 3-day block in between Nationals and TDU, and then after TDU I'll get another 3-day block in here before Cadell's. So yeah, it just sort of helps me switch off. I know I can get the right training done up here, and to be fair, I don't mind driving down the Hume and travelling a fair bit. So it's I'd much rather be up here.
Cool. And then usually I ask what you're training for. It's pretty obvious. It's the start of January. I think everyone in the world knows what this man's training for right now. You've probably been training for it for longer than anyone else because you took the offie super early. But how are the conditions feeling? How you feeling?
Yeah, like you said, I had 6 weeks off after the games, and then sort of just eased into it ever so slightly towards China, and then after China, which was middle of October, I had another week off, and then been getting into it since then. So yeah, it's been a really big build-up, which will sort of carry through all the way to end of March. But training's been going well. It's been a lot hotter, I'd say, at the start of summer than usual up here. So it's been nice to have a bit of heat, even though Perth doesn't look too hot on the forecast now. But no, training's been going really well, sort of mixing it between bit of TT stuff and also an eye on TDU more training tailored towards TDU than anything. Look, I think Nationals this year is sort of going to be a tactical race more than Buninyong is, where you can, if you're the strongest, you'll be able to win it. So sort of looking at those efforts tailored towards TDU and just hoping I find the right move come Sunday in the road race.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense, and I guess it's probably a bit easier to train for TDU in a way because you know what the key stages are going to be. If you're someone that's targeting GC, you know basically what's going to be required from a performance perspective, what numbers you're going to need to be pushing for what amount of time. Nationals is more of a lottery, like with this course the way it is. What kind of sessions have you been doing to target that, or have they all been purely towards TDU?
Nah, all of the road bike sessions have been tailored towards TDU, which are those 3 to 8 minute efforts. I think stage 3 at TDU is a really big one. It's a new climb that we haven't done before, and I think that's actually probably going to play more of a part than Wollonga. And then, so that's been sort of the road bike focus, and then TT focus is obviously those 30-40 minutes tailored towards TT National. So been mixing it up a fair bit actually.
Yeah. And then, before I get into everyone's questions that's come through, which we've got to load, and we'll try and get through the ones that we can. One question I've got, and we touched on it before we came on air, so you've just had to jump into Bright now to get the better Wi-Fi, but when you're parked up out there, living out of a caravan, what's the setup actually like? Like, how are you managing to train like a pro cyclist living out of a caravan in the middle of nowhere up there?
So I've got my best mate Blake Quick up here with me. He's been here for best part of 2 months now. So he's actually living in the Jayco Caravan at the moment. I've got
Yeah.
myself a tiny house now, so sort of upgraded a little bit. I mean, it's the full setup. It's got a bathroom, a shower, a toilet in it. It's got a cooktop, an oven, and everything you need. And then I've got a generator that runs my sauna. So that's been the key for the last few weeks. And then I've got a river on the property, which is my cold plunge post saunas. So I absolutely love it. It's that little escape. And then on Rico days, I don't feel like a cyclist at all. I'm filling up the water troughs for the cows or the sheep, or mowing the lawn.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of the cows in your Instagram story. Anyone that follows you would have. Are they actually your cows? Have you been? Are you a farmer now up there? You got a few head of cattle yourself?
Got two Highland cows now, which are mine. I got them just over a month ago now, which they're just pets and lawnmowers, but they're absolutely beautiful. And then we got, I think there's 15 sheep on there at the moment. So again, just lawnmowers, but it's nice just to drive past and see some animals. And the cows have been a really nice addition. It's really nice to see families drive past or ride by on the way to the brewery or the pub, and stop and take some photos with the cows. So yeah, it's been nice.
You didn't bring them back from Glasgow then, from Worlds?
No, I didn't.
just that must have got you thinking on them. And then you also got to watch running barefoot from the sauna to the cold plunge. Then if they're your lawnmowers, you probably got a few little turds sitting there nicely that you got to dodge around.
Yeah, geez, they shit a fair bit, don't they?
Well, if all you eat is fibre, then that's probably going to happen.
Exactly. No, they're nicely fenced off in their own paddock away from my route to the cold plunge.
Yeah, perfect. Now, it sounds like a dreamy life up there. And then, yeah, interesting that you've got the sauna up there, because this time of year, I guess, you're not even having to worry too much about heat because we've been getting enough. I guess it's tricky, though, because last year, I think all of us in Victoria just missed out on any natural heat acclimation. So we're all just, searching for saunas or baths or whatever to try and get that in at this time of year. How much are you changing up depending on the conditions for when you jump in the sauna? So, like, say, for example, it's like today, 38 degrees outside. Do you do the same sauna as you would if you were riding in 24 degrees, or how's that change?
No, not at all. You're right. Last year it was a massive focus on the sauna or the heat block, and had to do a lot more with it. Whether this year, there's been a couple of days where we've just canned heat prep altogether just because it's been so hot outside. Or today, for example, I just jumped in for, I think I got 13 minutes in there as soon as I finished my ride. So we just cut it short. It's based off feel more than anything, or heart rate. I've dabbled in the core sensor before as well, but I prefer just doing it off feel or heart rate a bit more. So now that it's a lot hotter outside, just that little stimulus straight off the bike. But last year was a lot more 30, 40 minute sessions, and this year seemed to be anywhere from 10 to 25 at the absolute maximum, which has been a lot nicer. I really do enjoy the sauna, but with how hot it's been lately, really haven't had to do a whole heap of it. And being Perth, looks like it's only going to be 30 degrees, both road race and TT. It's not super, super essential. Yeah,
it's pretty rare that you would get that cool over there, I think, at this time of year, and I bet all the Perth boys were hoping for a bit more. But then at the same time, I think everywhere in Oz, everyone will be pretty heat adapted, so should be a bit of a level playing field this year. Going into now some questions that we have had. So first one, I guess, is from a bloke that I think is down the road from where you are now, Julian Baudry. He's asked for some tips on a fast TT. So I guess that's been the main prep for Nationals, and it's a tricky one because TT's like there's 100 tips for how you can go fast. I guess, what are the things that you've focused on this year coming into Nationals and to try and give you that edge over the competition?
Look, I think it's just time on the bike. I learned a lot after the Olympics prep, sort of focusing on TTs, whether that be specific sessions we've tailored towards the course demands. But I think the biggest thing I found was before the Olympics, I did almost 6 weeks solely on the TT bike, and that set up a really good base in position. So I was able to sort of tap into the TT bike a lot later this prep and just focus on getting fit, more so after my big break. So it's only been the last couple of weeks where we've really gone on the TT bike. And the power's sort of there from the road anyway. I sort of seem to cross over quite well with the power transfer. So yeah, it's sort of just trying to tailor the TT efforts to each course. Like the efforts I do for this year's nationals are a lot different to say a Buninyong course. I think this year's going to be a lot more of an even effort compared to, I guess, what you see in Europe or Buninyong, which is a lot more over paced.
Yep. And then like on race day itself, I guess what kind of things are you using? Are you someone that rides purely to power on the race day? Like, do you have, I guess, working with Nico and your coach, who's anyone that hasn't listened to that episode, go and listen to it because he gives a bit of insight into how Plappy's been training. But are you working with him to set out a power pacing plan, or are you someone that's really just on the feel on race day?
A lot on feel, to be honest. We have a lot of sessions where it's, I guess, threshold sensation. So it's based off how I feel on the day and trying not to look at the power meter too much. There's some sessions where it's a guide and I try to stick to those numbers, but then there's always at least a couple efforts during the week where it is based off that threshold sensation and sort of going off feel. And I definitely noticed that was the biggest benefit both last year at Nationals when the power meter wasn't working and I had to swap bikes, or at the Olympics when I felt a lot better and the power was a lot higher than, I guess, the numbers he would have set for me. So yeah, I think the sensation's the biggest thing for me, because if you are on a great day, you're not limiting yourself, or if there are problems with the equipment, you've got a really good feel for it. And I also think that comes back from the track days too, that I'm quite used to training off feel and trying to keep it smooth rather than really focusing on those numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely in training you still look at the numbers a lot, but on race day it's just there more so than anything. It's not something that I'm looking at or trying to ride to.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people can learn. I think so many people just, because everyone has access to numbers now, it's super cool. Like, everyone does their training to numbers. Everyone's got the power meters there that are pretty reliable now. But I think it's important to remember, like, on race day, or any day, like, the numbers are always there to help. If the numbers aren't helping because, like you said, either you don't know if they're right because you've had a technical issue and you don't know if it's calibrated or it's not working at all, or, for example, that, yeah, you're just on a good day and you're actually able to push more. If the numbers aren't helping, just take them away, don't worry about it, and go, like, feelings are always going to actually trump anything else, which I think a lot of people struggle to understand. And it's sort of a tricky one because we've got so much data to use now. But at the end of the day, if you're feeling good, you'll be riding better. And if you're feeling absolutely terrible and still trying to hit those numbers, you're just going to blow even worse than you would have otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. And I think especially at the moment with the heat, if you're looking at heart rate too, that's always going to be a lot higher as well. So I think feel's the best thing to be going off at the moment for me. And I think also earlier in the season too, you're coming up a lot quicker from your off season. So those numbers or those sessions each week are jumping higher and higher as you go on, where the
and that's
middle
the
of
thing.
the season is quite stable.
Yeah, I find exactly the same thing, and that's why so many people are just massive on lactate testing. It'd be interesting. I'll get onto you about that, but the lactate testing to set the zones and all that kind of stuff. And I always find this time of year, your zones change by like 10, 20 watts each week. And then they might keep changing, and then you might start doing heat prep, and then they fall down again because you're suddenly doing all this stuff in the heat, or it's just got hotter, and then they fly back up once you actually get heat adapted. And your zones are literally changing by the day, so you have to have a bit of smarts about you and just go by feeling sometimes and just go, okay, this is how I'm feeling today. Like, my threshold's probably actually sitting 20 watts higher than it usually would be. And then some days you just go and, yeah, like a sack of shit, and you have to actually be prepared to back it off.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have never done lactate testing ever. It's not something that I've ever used or we use with Nick. And yeah, like you alluded to with the heat prep, like, it does knock me around a lot. My numbers do drop off quite a bit during a heat phase as well. So it's sort of knowing that they are going to come off about that 5% mark for me. But I seem to get a good 5% back once I stop and taper for the event. So I think that again is where since the sensation efforts are best, because you just you'll head fuck yourself, for lack of a better word, if you're trying to look at the numbers but you're halfway through a heat prep and your numbers aren't as good. So you're always doubting yourself a week before the racing, but then you taper and freshen up without the heat, and you come up a lot better.
Yeah, and that's one I like. Every person I'm coaching, it's so hard the first time they do the heat prep, or even the first time a big build into a race, and that week, 2 weeks out, when they're just feeling so terrible, and not hitting amazing numbers, and they're always without fail. The first time someone does that kind of prep, they're just panicking, like I'm going to be terrible in this race. Why am I paying this bloke this money to be feeling terrible a week out from my biggest race that is all I care about? It doesn't matter what, like, could be Worlds or Olympics, or it could be their like local Grand Fondo, whatever. Happens every single time, and then by race day, absolutely flying when you do that taper, when you back off the heat, and then it's just about, I guess you've been through that process enough times now. You probably 20 or 30 times you've done that build to the point where you feel pretty shit. Chuck a bit of extra stuff on it, whether it's heat or altitude, and then now you have that confidence that come race day next week, and then especially for TDU, you'll actually be able to go out there and feel good.
Yeah, no, exactly like you said.
Yep. Cool. We'll get into the usual run of questions. So, looking forward to hearing some of these. What's your favourite training session?
It's funny, I was thinking about this the last few days, getting ready for the pod. It would chop and change a lot, but I think the last year I've really enjoyed the TT specific sessions I do. So we do a double day. And in the morning, it's more of that spike zone 3 on the TT bike. Those 30-minute spike zone 3 efforts you'll do, maybe 2 or 3 of them. Come home, eat like a horse, recover, and then about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, go back out, and we smash out a set of 40-20s. And it's an absolute brutal day, but it's one that I guess I've grown to love. And I think the reason I love it is that it's the main session that I see really, really brings me up. I think it's probably the key day or key session in all my time trial builds that I get a lot from it. I'd probably say
that's the 40-20s on the TT as well?
Yeah. Swaps and change. It's more of a physical effort, so it doesn't really matter. But at the moment I have been doing them on the TT bike, and to be honest, it's 30 seconds sprinting out of the bars, 10 seconds like seated in the skis. So it's not in the position, but it can be on any bike. It's also on the ergo more often than not too. So just depends where I am. If it's here in Bright, I do it out on the road just because it's super safe and you're focusing just on the physical aspect, and the roads out here allow that. Whether if it's in Europe, I'll do it on the ergo a lot, and that's also because it's only a 45 to 1 hour session, so you want to be able to make sure you're on pretty good roads straight away to get out, get it done, and then come home, which is why it's easy on the road here. But if it's in Europe, it's sometimes a lot on the ergo.
And then going from that, what would be your least favourite session?
Probably like your 4 or 5 hour rides where it's like maybe 3 sets of 30 or 40 minute zone 3 effort, like steady state. So it's just like you're going out for a pretty long day, and then you just have to lap the Garmin and you're just pressing on for like 40-50 minutes at the same power. I guess a lot of people enjoy it, but I prefer having like quite a lot of structure to a session.
Well, I guess also for you, those sessions are probably a bit more lonely than for other people. Like for others, they can probably say, hey, jump on my wheel, I'm just doing some zone 3. For you turn around at the end of that and no one's within 10 minutes of you. So you probably get stuck by yourself and just smashing yourself away for 40 minutes at a time there. And it would drag on a bit, I'd imagine.
Yeah, the only good thing the last couple of weeks is I've got Stephen Lane up here, who you've had on the pod as well, and we've sort of created a few comms around here which are like double hill reps or something. So it's turned into like a high zone 2, low zone 3, 2 times 40 into more of a very high zone 3, and trying to get the comm off Slaney, whether it's up Buffalo or Toowoomba or something, doing like 2 reps of them. So that's been nice to sort of chase some comms to keep it entertaining. But it's more so when you're like in that zone and you're not going full gas, but you're not going easy, and you're just sort of like looking at that Garmin the whole time for 3 sets of 40 minutes.
What's your go-to then for those ones? Are you music in the ears to get you through it, or just raw dogging it?
No, always music.
Yeah, okay. Or cricket this time of year.
Yeah, or cricket this time of year. Those efforts are really good if it is cricket, but you struggle in the mountains up here to hold reception the whole time, and you end up pulling your phone out 30 minutes in and being like, oh, I've lost reception, and having to get a big playlist on.
Yeah, that's the worst when you start losing, and then you comes in and out a bit, and then it just gets too painful, and then you just got to give up on it at some point. Righto, favourite loop. I've got a good guess as to what this will be, but I want to hear it from your mouth anyway.
Yeah, it's there's two. There's one that's, I think it's a beautiful loop and a favourite loop, but it's hard and you don't want to do it very often, which would be Three Peaks. I think it's an absolute awesome loop and I love it, but it also, you can't do it very often. And the other one, to be honest, would be a bit left field, but it'd be the Scottsdale loop in Tassie. A couple of years ago, I did that with Richie a fair few times.
That's a Richie favourite, yeah.
Yeah, really loved it. I think it's got a really good mix of those short 1-2 minute really high climbs, or then on the backside you've got a really nice 20-minute climb with sort of a 40-minute chop off back into town, and it's 120k. So yeah, that one I really enjoyed doing when I was over there. But I think as far as the best loops you can do go, it's Three Peaks. Just you can't put it in your program too often.
Yeah. I'd say especially this time of year when you're actually building up for a key event, it kind of takes a few days out of the program either side to be able to get that one done. So it is. I can't actually even say I've done the full loop, done every road on it, but never in the one day. But gonna have to commit to just banging it out when I'm up there one day. Right, next one. When you've got the plan in there, so Nick Owens put your plan in. Actually, we chatted a little bit about this the other day when we were trying to plan the podcast, but are you someone that sticks to the plan, or do you change it up based on those sensations, how you feel and what the weather's like, all that kind of stuff?
With Nick, so we actually don't really set a program many days in advance. It's either 1 or 2 days in advance, or in the morning we'll sort of have a text or a call and see what's going on. So we sort of change it on a daily basis based off how I'm feeling.
And is that year round or just coming into a key period like this?
No, that's year round. It's if year round it might be 2 or 3 days in advance. At the moment it's more that daily sort of programming. But once it's locked in, I do it sort of to a T and focus on it. But it also could be molds into one of your other questions. If the weather's pretty shit, we'll either make it a 2-day block and a bit of a harder 2-day block, or if the weather's good, we'll go back to a 3-day block. So we sort of do change it a lot on the weather as well and how I'm feeling.
Yeah, and I guess up there it's tricky because you just get a lot of days where you genuinely cannot ride if there's like crazy storms around there. It's genuinely not safe. So do you actually even have a trainer where you are set up to go?
No, I don't do ergos at all, to be fair. And if it's raining, it's all right. Let's change the program and fit it in around the weather. So no, it's not something that I like to jump on the ergo. It's only for that key TT session if we need to do it.
Same boat, team anti-ergo for sure. Right, so when you're doing most of your training, I've seen anyone that's following you would have seen a fair bit up there, but are you solo trainer or in a group?
Almost always solo. If I get the chance to ride with, say, a Fergus Browning or a Blake, I'll put it in, but more often than not, I'm always solo. And it goes both ways. Like, I don't really enjoy riding with people when they've got efforts and you're trying to fit your rides in around them. And I get a lot of structure in my programs too, and I'd rather just get it done perfectly rather than try work out what loop you can do with someone else and fit efforts in there. If I've got a 30-minute effort, I know where I'm going to go. If I've got shorter efforts, I know where I'm going to go. So I sort of plan my rides based on exactly what the efforts entail, and it could be a lot of out and back or ups and downs. So yeah, I'd say 95% of the time I'm solo.
I have seen that you do use a bunchy though, a bit. So the hammer up there, hell ride when you're back in Melbourne. So you still manage to work it in sometimes, just jumping in with a bunch ride here and there when it's not efforts, I'm guessing.
Yeah, definitely earlier on, straight after off season, we use that a lot just to help get the hours done. At the moment, I haven't done a lot of bunches at all. But a good one is if I go back to Melbourne and see mum and dad, we always work in Hell Ride in Glenvale on a Saturday, Sunday. It's sort of a really easy way in Melbourne to get the riding done. It's also you get to ride out with some mates, do Glenvale and get a great stimulus, and then some hours afterwards. So it's really only a Saturday, Sunday in Melbourne where I'll mix that in. But when I'm up here, and especially in this sort of block, it's almost every single day solo.
Yeah. No, I didn't really appreciate you actually coming down to Glenvale and just chasing down every single one of my attacks, and then getting in a few moves with me and tearing my legs off at the end. But you nearly managed to gift me the win, actually, so I can't complain too much, but it just made it a very hard day out trying to hold your wheel there. When you're out riding solo or with a group, are you stops or no stops on a ride?
Just servo stops. Just fill up if I need some food, get some food, but it's usually a very quick servo stop, and then get back on it. It's also sort of where I am, like out here, there's not a whole lot of towns once you get started, so it's sort of get out and get it done. And in Europe as well, because I'm solo, it's not like you're parking up, doing much. So yeah, I usually don't stop.
And we've got one here, which I'm hoping you know a bit more about this question. A listener question. Hot summer's day in Wandy, do you stop for an apple slushy at the end of your ride? That's from Mrs. Melly T.
Occasionally, the apple orchard is a very beautiful place to park up, which is only 2 minutes away from home. So early on in the pre-season prep, it's always nice to stop there and have a little slushy or a little cider before I just 2 minutes back home. But no, there's some nice little spots to park up, or if it's Bright Brewery after a big 6-hour day, and just hang out with some mates post-ride then.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, staying on the food then, what's your favourite training food?
Look, if it's efforts, it is race nutrition. It's sort of chews or the bars, or I don't mind just having a bag of Haribo as well. It's super easy. Most bags are about 70, 80 grams of carbs, so you just know if you smash a whole bag. You get in the carbs in, and that sort of works in a bit with like when you need to fill up at a servo because it's quite hot at the moment. You just get a Gatorade or something and then get a bag of Haribos and away you go. So yeah, it sort of just depends, but a lot of it's just either sugar or some race nutrition at the same time.
Yeah. And then what's your go-to? You cooking up a breakfast in the tiny home there. What's your go-to before you ride?
Quite boring, but a lot of the time it's actually rice and eggs.
Right.
I keep it quite simple.
Just rice
and
eggs.
very very similar to Jimmy. So yeah, a lot of if it's ever an effort day, it's always rice and eggs.
Right. Keeping it simple, and then straight in from a ride when you cooked hard 4 or 5 hour day with efforts there. Pretty dehydrated, I imagine as well. What's your go-to for lunch?
First thing's always a smoothie, and then after that, it's sort of give that some time to work out what I want to have. I'm always craving, always like you're so smashed, you just make a smoothie and then you work out what you want to have after that. But it's just any type of meat, to be honest, and whatever else I feel like. But the smoothie's sort of that main thing that I make sure I get in, and then after that, just play it by ear.
Yep. Nice. And do you ever do any low carb stuff actually when you're out? Like even coming off the off season, was that something you were doing this year, or are you always well fueled for your sessions?
No, I do a fair bit, to be honest. I think a lot of that comes from the Ineos days. That was sort of a big thing that we did with Ineos, and I've sort of carried that through. I really enjoy it, actually. So yeah, I do a fair bit of low carb riding. I just quite like tapping along. I only do 180 watts, like it's never much more than 200 watts. And it's just that 30, like go out fasted and then 30 grams an hour after the first hour and a half. I quite enjoy that sort of that.
You even do that for like a 4 or 5 hour endurance ride as well?
Yeah. So it's usually that sort of, usually there's maybe one in each block, one in each 3-day block, or at least once a week I'll usually do it. And that's sort of the day where I just like load up 3 or 4 podcasts and just tap away really, really easily. And that sort of, I mean, it's dead riding time, but I quite enjoy just going super easy and just ticking it over. And I do quite like it, and I think that comes from the Ineos sort of days.
Yep. And then, do you do any cross training? Any gym, any parks, are you playing any cricket, rolling the arm over at any point?
No, I wish. No gym at all, but yeah, quite a lot of hiking, especially like pre-season, hiking and running. In the off-season this year, I did a fair bit of running, even dabbled in a bit of swimming. So I like swapping it up a lot. None at the moment in the sense, but yeah, in that like off-season and pre-season,
Yeah,
I
okay.
like to get on the foot falcon a fair bit. And sort of like, yeah, it was just an easy way to get a bit of extra endurance in that pre-season. I was trying to get 2 or 3 runs in. And then, yeah, I like to smash a few hikes out in the off-season too, which is always enjoyable.
Yeah, you're in a pretty good area for hiking anyway. Right,
Yeah.
we'll get into our rapid fire would you rather. So, yeah, try and keep these short, but if there's any we need to go into, we will. So, first one, aero or lightweight?
Aero.
Disc or rim brake?
Disc. I love the rim brake look. I think that's something I'll run when I rack it.
Alright.
But disc for now.
Tubeless or clincher tyre?
Tubeless all the way.
Even training, you're tubeless all the way now.
Yeah, because I don't carry. We'll carry on to the next one. I know what's coming. I don't carry spares or saddlebags or bar bags, so it's
So saddlebag or frame
tubeless
bag?
and no, nothing. It's run tubeless with a lot of sealing and hope that that's gonna do the job and get me through the ride. And if not, call a taxi.
Well, there's enough people probably riding past up there that'd be stoked to be able to give you a tube. So you're probably in the best part of the world to run the gauntlet like that. That's
Yeah.
raw dogging it though for sure. Socks over or under leg warmers?
Socks are always under the leg warmers.
Gloves or no gloves?
Almost never gloves. Only racing like winter Stelvio Giro sort of stage, but never like short finger gloves.
Yeah. In TTs, no gloves as well.
Never. No.
Right. Have you done actually just a bit off topic? Have you done the testing on whether gloves are ever actually faster, track or road? The aero gloves.
They're not. No, they're not faster on a TT bike. There was a set of gloves back in the day, 2018 Com Games, that the Australians rode that were faster. They're now banned.
I think I
but
remember
no.
seeing those. Yeah, they look like something out of a non-PG movie. But yeah.
Yes. So no gloves, and they don't. I mean, some gloves they test the same as no gloves, but you're pretty safe if you're safer if you don't wear them.
Yeah. Heat or altitude training?
Heat every day of the week. I don't enjoy altitude too much,
Yeah.
and I absolutely love my heat training.
Town sign sprints or com hunting?
Definitely com hunting. I don't do a lot of it, but this year I've got into it a lot more. But yeah, definitely comms rather than town signs.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're training with Blake, you probably haven't beaten him in a single town sign sprint since he's been there.
Yeah, that's also why I do comms, because I can't win town signs.
Yeah. Early morning training or pro hours?
I don't know if you call like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock leaves pro hours anymore, but like lunchtime sort of departures.
You got in a good stretch there of doing the 6 a.m. departures so you could get home in time to watch the cricket.
Yeah, that is a thing. To be fair, in Europe it's even worse. Europe's like a 2 o'clock leave because the footy season's on, and that's usually like a 8 a.m. start till midday. So in Europe, I'd say I leave even later because I make sure I watch the footy Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday mornings. And again, it's sort of why I like the heat. I wait till the hotter parts of the day at the moment as well to ride.
Yeah, for sure. Rico day or day off the bike?
I'd say every second Rico day is a day off. So me and Nick throw a lot of complete days off. If it's a really key session, the next day we'll do a short spin. But if it's not, if it's only a zone 3 or an endurance ride the next day, I'll almost always have a day off.
Yeah. Would you rather ride with a half-wheeler or a wheel sucker?
Half-wheeler and like go back and forth going at each other. Me and Fergus Browning had a nice ride the other week. He was half-wheeling me for about 3 hours and then started to crack, and I got to get him back for the last couple hours. But no, I don't enjoy wheel suckers for some reason.
Yeah, right. I'd say you get a fair few of them in Girona.
Yeah.
When you're there. Yeah. Andorra, you probably don't have to worry too much because the hills are enough that they're not getting on your wheel.
Exactly.
Squeaky disc brake or creaky bottom bracket?
Squeaky disc brake. I run that a fair bit, to be honest.
And then, would you prefer a complete hunger flat or severe dehydration?
Complete hunger flat every day of the week. It's kind of a nice, satisfying feeling coming home a bit flat, to be honest. I don't mind it at all.
Yeah, if you've got food there, it makes the smoothie probably taste a bit nicer when you're
It does,
completely
it
hunger
does.
flat.
And you can get back from that where the dehydration sort of just like there's nothing good that comes from it.
And there's just no taps out where you are as well. Like if you're on the
No.
wrong side of a hill, and there's a long way from home, you're pretty fucked where you are.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
Okay, last question. Best piece of advice might be something you've received, might be something from your coach, something from another rider. Best piece of advice for everyone listening.
It's actually from a CrossFit athlete, Matt Fraser. Not to me personally, but
Yeah,
it's something that I sort of sticks with me. And when I'm in a hard training block or just needing a bit more motivation, it's hard work pays off. And I sort of write HWPO on my wrist. And I think that's something that's stuck with me a lot. It's if you're not going too great or just whatever it is, that's sort of something that keeps me going. And I know that like it will work and will pay off at the end of the day. And I think yeah, that's sort of something that I stick with and say to myself on most rides, to be honest.
yeah, and I guess it makes sense. Like especially you need it a bit because you're up there doing a lot of it solo, a lot of it by yourself, ticking away at this time of year, especially because you get a lot of days on the bike where you're not feeling that great and it does just feel hard. I'm sure you get also a lot of days, yeah, where it just feels like a job. You just got to go out there and get it done, even though you don't necessarily want to, and it is just hard work in those instances. As much as it looks cool riding a bike around an amazing part of the world, or a lot of days it does feel like work. So that hard work, just knowing that when it comes into the key race period, like you've got coming up, that's going to pay off most of the time. Sometimes, like Olympics, you end up in a barrier and it doesn't pay off. But longer term, like you just have to have that belief that the work that you are putting in is going to pay dividends in the long run.
Yeah, I think so. It's also like even in training, if you're not hitting the numbers, it's like that hard work you're putting in, that perceived effort. The numbers might not be there, but if you're putting in the perceived effort that you're meant to hit for that session, you're still going to get that work out of it, and it will pay off on race day. And I think it's if you're down or you're not super motivated, if you still make sure you're getting it done, it does pay off in the sense rather than chucking the towel in. And I think it sort of goes back to consistency. If you keep working hard at it, if you're not making junior teams when you're younger or you're not getting the results you want, if you keep sticking at it, that hard work will pay dividends at some point.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. Well, thanks so much for coming on, mate. We got to get back to watching cricket. Just try and get the Aussies up over the line here against the Indians. We didn't go too well in that second session, so gonna have to. Hopefully, by the time everyone's actually listening to this, we've got over the line and cleaned up the series. But we'll see what happens. Good luck in Perth next week. Hopefully, the travel all goes smoothly, and hopefully, you can make it 4 in a row.
Thanks, cheers for having me on, mate.
Yeah. Cheers. Right. Thanks everyone for listening. Let us know who you want me to try and tee up while I'm at Tour Down Under. I'll get Plappy to send some people down from the Hilton to the lobby and I can get them onto the microphone and then we'll see how we go. Thanks everyone for tuning in and stay ready for the next one. Cheers.